Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Flash update today, April 6, 2026. Time in Texas about 9 a.m. Some of the things we'll cover. The Wizzo climbed 7,000 feet with a broken ankle. President Trump, Tuesday. Bridge and Power Plant Day. And U.S. intel just in. Iran cuts all talks. So let's get started. So we have from space weather, including YouTube space weather, Ben Davidson, that some new white papers, science papers have come out further substantiating the contact between human health and what goes on in space. Very interesting. And we have this today. Artemis is on the far side of the moon. At some point, we will lose communications with Artemis for about 40 minutes. After Artemis resumes communication, it's believed they will begin to send back to Earth pictures of the far side of the moon. That will be exciting. We have this from U.S. Intel. So Sunday, there were talks between President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and contacts in Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan with Iran's foreign minister. And Iran then advised at the conclusion of the talk Sunday to both Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan, and Qatar that Iran would no longer engage in talks with the U.S. and they would no longer engage in negotiations for a ceasefire or a peace talk or anything else. Iran no longer will receive any more messages from the U.S. So we see Iran, or the psychopaths masquerading as the government of Iran. Actually, it's believed to be the IRGC, the Islamic Republic Guard, that's calling the shots now from Iran, and saying they will not engage in any more talks. So that happened late Sunday. This is Monday morning. And we have this. So we saw over the weekend, we saw Friday, Iran juiced up by a resupply from both Russia and China, able to hit several U.S. planes. And one of the planes taken down was an F-16 Strike Eagle. Friday, the pilot was rescued, but the Wizzo, the weapons system officer who had landed some distance from the plane and sustained, we believe, a broken ankle. Engaged in his training from the U.S. military, he was to move away from where he landed as soon as possible. We're hearing now that some people in a local village where the Wizzo went down sheltered him. I would speculate they gave him food and water, and that then he moved away from the village and began to climb 7,000 feet up a mountain. That's a testament to the relentless nature and training of the U.S. military. Now we're hearing today that those 20 of the people in the small village who sheltered the Wizzo have been arrested by the IRGC. So we need to be in prayer for those people. And we had also immediately, as soon as the F-15 Strike Eagle went down, that CIA that's embedded in Iran began to immediately engage in misinformation to lead the IRGC away from the location where the pilot and Wizzo went down. And we are hearing this, that the U.S. military engaged in a firefight, special forces with the IRGC besiege, who wanted to capture the Weasel, who was 7,000 feet up a mountain. And we know that now we know the scope of the U.S. military's response. So Friday, the F-16 went down, pilot rescued, Weasel hiding. Saturday morning, then the U.S. military engaged in one of the most massive, historic rescue events in U.S. military history that involved 76 planes and hundreds of special forces. We do know, and we now know, the U.S. military went 400 miles into Iran to build a temporary emergency base. They did sit down two C-130s, who are very heavy planes, each of which can carry two of the little birds, small helicopters used by special forces and their work, and that the two C-130s got stuck in the sand. Then the military sent in a large, lighter plane that could then take two of the small birds, not the total four. And that then the U.S. military decided to blow up the two C-130s and the two little birds they could not reload. To do that, B-2 bombers came over the site and dropped 40 1,000-pound bombs to completely destroy both of the two C-130s and the two little birds, to prevent IRGC from getting their hands on U.S. technology. And we have this. Yeah, the CIA had immediately located also the Weasel who was injured and still on the ground. And then we saw that triumphant message from President Trump after the very successful U.S. military rescue of the Weasel on Saturday. President Trump came out and said, "We got him." The U.S. military is engaged in the most daring search and rescue in U.S. military history. And the Weasel was being hunted by the IRGC. And his location had been in continuous monitoring by the U.S. military, including Secretary of War Hegseth, General Kane of the Joint Chiefs, and Admiral Cooper, head of the CENTCOM operation. And we have this from Ward Carroll. 76 planes were engaged in the rescue of the Weasel. That included 16 warthogs. The U.S. military had an additional 14 warthogs warming up in case they were needed. And that, yeah, the two C-130s got stuck in the sand and they were later blown up. So that's going on. And we have this. So the Weasel, with a broken ankle, managed to climb 7,000 feet and reach a ridge line where he hid in a crevice for about 36 hours. From Enforcer, we have that the U.S. now is prepping to obliterate Iran, and I gave you that current U.S. intel that came out just a few minutes ago, that Iran is not going to engage in any more talks with the U.S. So it's always good to let your enemy decide for himself that, yes, he's going to fall on his sword. So that wasn't a decision you made. Your enemy made it for himself. And we have this. Yeah, the injured Weasel had a broken ankle. He climbed 10 to 12 kilometers, or 6 to 7.5 miles up a mountain, 7,000 feet. He reached a ridge line where he concealed himself in a crevice. And we have this from Times of Israel. The Weasel, while hiding, Israel also helped to put out misinformation, and also Israel helped the U.S. with intel to help the U.S. know where to put down airstrikes to protect the hiding Weasel. And we also have, Israel helped the U.S. with intel. And we have this. So beginning today, April 6th, and early this morning is when Iran said they were not going to engage in any more talks. And we know Sunday, President Trump put out his on Truth Social. Tuesday will be Bridge and Power Plant Day, and he gave a specific time. Tuesday night about 8 p.m. That would be U.S. time. So that would be several hours later in Iran. So we have today, April 6th. Israel is taking out more of the IRGC leaders. They've taken out one who was part of the Quds group of the IRGC in charge of targeting Israel. He's gone to meet his, 72 virgins. And we have this, and then today, Iran is hitting Israel, Haifa, with cluster bombs. And we have this. Israel helped the U.S. with intel to rescue the missing Weasel. President Trump is talking about he had tried to arm Iranian civilians early in this conflict. There is now confusion. Some U.S. intel is coming out that the U.S. gave weapons to the Kurds to give to the Iranian people, and that now some sources are saying that the Kurds stole the weapons and didn't give them to the Iranian people. However, it's also coming out a recognition by TOUSI TV, which I did also know. There are several groups of the Kurds. One, PKK, that's the Kurds group that tried to assassinate Erdogan of Turkey years ago. That's a separate group. You also have Kurds who are Iranian nationals. They're from Iran, and they want a separate piece of land for a Kurds homeland. But they are a separate group from the PKK. We have a third group that appears to be in line with the IRGC. So it's unclear if the U.S. gave weapons to the Kurds group. Which Kurds group did this happen, or did this actually happen? It's unknown. But we have that Iranian citizens actively helped in the rescue of the Weasel. They went out at night with their vehicles on, this is a mountain area, so there's sparse roads, and they knew the IRGC were coming, and they went out with their vehicles to block the roads. They also went out in their towns to just stand around to block the IRGC. So that happened. So God bless the Iranian people, many of whom are part of a citizen group called the Immortal Guard, and they are communicating all over Iran as well as they can with the internet blackout. So that's going on. And we have this, and the rescue, the U.S. military received no casualties. Now, we're receiving conflicting information. I do believe that the Special Forces did engage in a firefight with the IRGC, and that video has come out showing dozens of IRGC dead on the ground. The U.S. military is giving no details about a firefight. President Trump has given warning to Iran. Tuesday is bridge and power plant day. And we also have, and beginning this morning, the U.S. is hitting Iran very hard. And we see Iran hitting Israel and some of its Gulf state neighbors. So that's going on. And we have this, that many, we're hearing about a civil war within the IRGC itself, and we're hearing thousands have defected from the IRGC as well as the Iranian military, and have abandoned checkpoints along the Iraq-Iran border. Now, this is where the U.S. rescue took place, close to this area where now the IRGC is not guarding its border. And we have in Lebanon, that's a nation adjacent to Israel, that Israel's been bombing, and the Hezbollah, a proxy for Iran, has been bombing Israel. The government of Lebanon several days ago told the IRGC ambassador and embassy to get out of Lebanon. Now it comes out that the IRGC, the Iranian ambassador, refuses to leave Lebanon. Apparently, he doesn't feel it will be safe for him in Iran. So that's going on. And we have this. So we know over the weekend, peace talks were going back and forth between several countries, including Pakistan. And that Israel has hit a city today, Bagman, that's near the capital city of Iran, Tehran, where it's believed the disabled Ayatollah number 2 is located. So that's going on. That happened today. We don't know what the current status is of Ayatollah number 2 today. And that today, the U.S. military strikes in western Tehran near the international airport where there are located underground bunkers with missile storage. And that Israel today has also taken out an IRGC intel leader, Hatami, as well as other. Israel also took out today an IRGC Brigadier General Zohari, who was in charge of air defense. And that the U.S. and Israel have hit Sharif University, and let it be noted, all schools and all universities and colleges have been closed since this conflict began February 28 to students, but have been used by the IRGC. So today, the U.S. and Israel hit Sharif University located in Tehran to take out underground bunkers there. And we have this. about several Kurds groups existing. We have from Real Raw News. We heard recently in the past 3, 4, 5 days that President Trump and the U.S. military have purged 12 U.S. generals, including the head of U.S. Army, General Randy George. Now, intel comes out that February 28, when this conflict began, General Randy George went to his boss, the Secretary of the Army, Driscoll, and said he didn't agree that Iran posed a threat to the U.S. and couldn't support U.S. military action against Iran. That same day, the CID, that's part of the U.S. military law enforcement arm, CID, came to the home of General Randy George, located in Crystal Beach, Virginia, and questioned him for 90 minutes. So that went on. They have not charged him with anything yet, but he is in the process of being removed from the U.S. military. And we have this, So the U.S. military went 400 miles into Iran, near Isfahan, a major city, to build out a temporary emergency base from which to launch their a rescue of the weasel, the colonel. In the intense and large U.S. military move 400 miles inside Iran, the U.S. incurred no casualties. And we have this from China Observer that April 2nd, Cuba has released 2,000 political prisoners. It's believed that Cuba is negotiating with the U.S. And for Blaze Real Talk, there are questions about whether President Xi in China is in charge. And it appears that the CCP may be positioning a new individual to take Xi's place. This individual is named Wen Jiabao. So that's going on. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.